I get lots of comments about what to do if downward facing dog doesn't work for your body. So today I'd like to talk about what to do if downward dog doesn't work for your wrists. I'm going to give you some different options. So just to be clear, what we're talking about is downward facing dog, the pose that looks something like this. We curl the toes under, we spread the fingers out a little bit, and then we lift the hips up and back. And so for many people who have issues with their wrists, this is not comfortable at all. Let's talk about what we can do. So the first option that you might consider is using something like a blanket to pad your wrist. So the way you do it is you set your blanket up kind of close to you, and then set the heels of your hands up on the edge of the blanket and the fingers down on the mat. Then you can tuck your toes under and lift your hips up and move into the downward facing dog in this way. So for some people, this will help. And the reason it helps is that it increases the angle so that your wrist doesn't have to bend so much. So there's one option. Another thing that you can do, if you really don't want to put any weight on your wrists at all, you could, rather than putting your hands down, you could put your forearms down, and technically it's a different posture. This posture is called Dolphin, but it's a great modification if the original downward facing dog is not working for you. So the way you do this one is you bring your forearms down onto the mat. I find that it's comfortable to bring the palms together rather than try to keep the palms face down, but do what works for you. So forearms are down, a little bit of space between your elbows, about shoulder width apart. And then from here, you can tuck your toes and lift your hips up. And you'll find that this pose feels quite different than downward facing dog. I think it requires more strength, but it might be a nice option for you. And then the last option that I want to show you, and this is one of my favorites. Sometimes I just take the downward facing dog, or at least the hands of the downward facing dog, off the floor completely and turn it into a standing posture. So the way we do this one is you need a chair, or like your kitchen countertop or bathroom countertop, or a tabletop, anything like that will work. And you'll bring your hands up onto that surface. If you're using a chair, I suggest putting the heels of your hands down and extending your fingers forward. And then you can walk your feet back until they're approximately aligned under your hips, and reach your hips back and stretch your arms forward, and you can work on your downward facing dog in this way. And so this version of downward facing dog is great for stretching out the back of your body, just like the regular downward facing dog does. The only difference is there's really not any pressure on the wrist, so it's much more comfortable on the wrists. And also, this version isn't as strengthening as the original posture, but for some people, that's perfectly fine. So hopefully these modifications and variations are helpful for you. If you have a different question about downward facing dog, or even another posture that you have trouble with, please leave me a note in the comments. I'd be happy to make a video and try to help you find a version of the posture that works well for your body. See you next time.